All right, we are live with Amateur Analysts Sports Podcast on October 31st, Halloween night. We do have one analyst who has decided to partake in a costume this evening, make fun of him mercilessly. We are going to be talking a little bit of World Series. It is 3-2 Indians going back for two straight games in Cleveland. Honestly thought the Cubs might lose all three, but they pulled one out at the end, so I'll let our guys go over their thoughts on what's happened so far. Let them introduce themselves across the line first, as always.
What's up, guys? Hey, actually, there's two of us that are dressed up. I'm actually sponsored by Miller Lite tonight. I'm a full-blown alcoholic because I have the blessing of cheering for the Seminoles, the Bucks, and the Magic all at one time. So that has obviously driven me to be a full-blown alcoholic.
Gentlemen and gentle ladies, I'm Waldo. I will not be drinking, but I will be eating almonds.
That's going to be the loudest, most obnoxious thing you've ever done. I'm so serious.
Hello, I'm Perry. I enjoy Michael's costume mainly because I find it ironic. I have a bartender named Allison who actually wore the same costume all weekend. Anyways, I'm dressed as a clown, or as some people would call me, an Atlanta Hawks fan.
Doobie is already in trouble with me because he misused the word ironic, which is my least favorite thing in the world. It's coincidental, not ironic, but I love you anyway.
It's so ironic that you bring that up, Palmer.
I am
literally
Eric Jones.
The funniest thing ever.
I'm Eric Jones. I'm your host. I will be talking a little bit after we get out of baseball, probably. These three guys usually take it on baseball and do a fine job, so I'm gonna let them get going with the World Series.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just start from the beginning. It's been a really fun series to watch. Indians pitching has really shown up. Obviously, their bullpen has been everything they expected it to be. Francisco Lindor is just an absolute star. I mean, you're just seeing a star in the making. It's pretty crazy. I've really enjoyed the little tidbits about him and Javi Baez coming from Puerto Rico and really making a name for themselves and for Puerto Rico in a time where they're really trying to bring and get ready for the World Baseball Classic and then try to get that going again. But I think the Indians are going to take it in 7. I think Arrieta beats Tomlin tomorrow night. But I think Kluber's the difference in 7. I'm really excited for it to go 7 games. I'm glad it's been competitive. As a former pitcher, I like to see pitching goals. I know a lot of people would rather see offense, but me personally, last night was my favorite game just for the electricity in that building. It was a lot of fun to watch. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow night and Wednesday, hopefully.
Yeah, so the one thing that I really enjoy about the World Series, more so than the divisional playoff games, are just the interleague matchups that you have and how it kind of factors in where teams have to play out of their element, whether that be having a DH or, when you go to the National League, having the AL pitcher go to bat. So I thought that was really interesting that Kluber was able to just go through that, and he had an RBI, if I'm not mistaken, in one of the games. So that's, just crazy. And the one storyline that I wanted to talk to you guys about, maybe just spend a couple seconds on it, because I think it's ironic how, normally the NL team, in my opinion, has an advantage when they go to the AL because they have the DH. And then when they come back to the NL, they have an advantage as well because they've been having their pitcher hit. But Schwarber cannot play when they're in Chicago because he hasn't been cleared. So he can only play when they're in Cleveland. And it's just I thought it was an interesting storyline where, he's such a prolific bat and he can't play except for when he's DHing. And so it's kind of almost a good thing when when the Cubs need a big game that they can go back and they can have Schwarber in the DH spot.
Do you guys have any idea how you can be cleared to run the bases but not cleared to play in the field? Like that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Well, Doobie muted himself and went off for a minute.
Not true. I am back.
He's back. There we go.
Trick or treat.
Yeah, so I think that actually the most incredible thing about this World Series doesn't really have anything to do with the series itself, but kind of how it's playing in sports in general. Last night, the World Series game beat the Sunday Night Football game by 32% in ratings. And that game wasn't between two slouches. It wasn't like tonight's game. It wasn't Vikings-Bears. That was Eagles-Cowboys when they're both at the top of their game with electric players that everybody wants to see, and it crushed them. Everyone can say this is a Cubs thing. That's fine. I understand. But I think it's hard to say that this isn't great for the sport of baseball, the Cubs being in it. And you're also looking at two teams, which in my opinion seem to be built to factor into the contention every year for the next 5 or so years. I mean, if I'm looking at the squads that I would name, it would be a team like a Cleveland, like a Chicago, like an LA, and maybe even throw in Kansas City. Not necessarily the biggest market teams, but teams that are going to have stars that are built for a while now. So I find that interesting. The series itself has been great. I think it goes to 7. If it does go to 7, I can't see the Cubs losing it. I think there's going to be way too much magic there, way too much inspiration. The whole country will be on their toes. And I still believe that Kluber is going to get blown up one of these times. I know he's been fantastic, but he just has that feel to me. Whereas Lester is an experienced guy who, even when he gets blown up, it's only for 3 runs. So I like the Cubs in 7 because I definitely think Tomlin's going to get crushed tomorrow night.
Yeah, do you like Hendricks before you like Kluber? Because Lester threw Game 5.
Oh, well then I'll change that. That revises. I'm sorry. I thought Lester threw Game 4. Yeah, no, I don't like Hendricks at all. I'll take the Indians in 7. Seriously, that completely changes things for me. That Hendricks is the guy that I've been waiting to get blown up the most. So I'll take Kluber over Hendricks every day, and Andrew Miller and Allen in the bullpen.
Y'all might know. Has there ever been somebody like Lester that has that much, like that literally just cannot throw the ball over to first?
Matt
Like,
Garza
at all?
was pretty bad. Matt Garza.
Yeah, Matt Garza had the yips a little bit, but it's honestly insane to me, man, because he's a professional baseball player, and he's been doing this his whole life. You know, Rajay Davis is taking 5 steps off the bag, and the first baseman is literally like, "Throw me the ball, throw me the
Who
ball."
was it? There was an Indian player on that like
Lindor.
slipped. He
Yeah.
slipped.
He went for
It
the
was like
steal.
on the ground, and Lester was like, I can't throw the ball over there.
And I mean, every time I face Lester, I'm bunting and trying to make him field the ball. If I can run even a lick, I'm trying to make him field the ball.
Oh yeah. So that's an interesting dynamic.
1 lick's worth of running.
All right. Any more World Series before we move on? All right.
I don't think so.
We are going to get into a little bit of NFL. We've been neglecting the NFL lately. So have viewers because their ratings are awful, probably for good reason, when you have a bunch of ties and crap games and crap teams. But we're going to talk about it a little this week, and it should be fun anyway. We're going to start just talking about a little bit about our picks and just general reactions to the game so far this weekend.
Yeah, so I had a little bit of a better week. I've had a subpar month, but a really good week this week as far as over 500, 6-5 against the spread, 7-4 straight up. What tipped the scales for me was I did pick the Saints to win, and they did. I was the only one of the 4.
I picked the Saints.
But
Not to win though.
I picked them straight up. And then the only one I don't understand myself, and I do this every single Friday/Saturday, is I think Andrew Luck is worth a damn, and then the Colts don't do a thing. So I continue to think that they have an underdog ability, and they get blown out by Kansas City, who didn't have Spencer Ware, didn't in the second half, didn't have Jamal Charles, and they have Alex Smith, who never been impressed with. And
He got hurt too.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's unbelievable how the Chiefs really just dominated that game for the most part. So, but yeah, relatively better week for me. Let's see if I can continue as we move forward.
So there's one game that we're definitely not going to cover, and that's going to be Green Bay Atlanta. So we'll just skip right over it. But the other game that I just wanted to talk about was the overtime game in London. I thought that was pretty cool that London fans are already super confused by football rules, and then we throw in this weird overtime where the first team if they score, they win, and I'm sure they're just like, what the hell is going on? So let's keep confusing the Brits. That's funny to me. I chose Philadelphia to plus 4.5 points. And that was a really, really stupid pick. Like, looking back on it, I had no idea what I was thinking. They weren't even home.
It looked good for a lot of that game, though.
It looked good for a lot of the game. Yeah, but it would just I mean, if I would have gone back, I should have chose Dallas. The other one that I was pretty happy about was the Carolina. I thought for sure that Arizona would take that away, but Carolina came out swinging. They won only by 10, but wasn't it like almost 25 points at one point?
It was 30-7 at one point.
30-7, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think Carolina just kind of got into, save the clock mode or burn the clock mode.
And they got garbage scores, just like Bortles. Bortles got 30 fantasy points on Thursday night.
Yeah, that's
and we
ridiculous.
only had 10 in like the second quarter. He's currently stashed on my bench, and if I had played him, I probably would have won this week.
Yeah. That's it. That's all I have.
I hate to do this every week, but I'll continue to do it every week. My reign continues in NFL picks. No one else is above 500 against the spread. I'm 21 games above 500. My record is 62-41. Like Palmer likes to say, if I threw away the parlays and actually bet like a smart human being, I'd be a very wealthy man. But I don't do that either. So as far as the pick specifically went, I did pretty well across the board. Not proud at all of my Buffalo plus 6.5 pick. I don't know why I did that. I don't know why I believed in Rex Ryan. Maybe because I really like him and have a soft spot for him. But he is basically the NFL's equivalent of Brett Bielema. So I don't know. They're pretty similar, yet I like one and despise the other, unless you're and believe that I love Brett Bielema secretly. The other picks that I had, Kansas City was just a super easy pick for me. I don't know why everyone else chose Indy. I really don't get that at all. I have Kansas City. I had them before the season as my Super Bowl champion team. That might be a bit of an exaggeration at this point, but I still believe that they are one of the best teams in the NFL. Week after week, I think they're underestimated. I think they're a very good team. I think they have a good backup. If Smith's concussion issues, which actually he was completely cleared, but if it does reoccur for him in the future, Foles is a guy who has experience, I think, who can come in there. He actually outplayed Smith on Sunday when he went in there. So I like that pick. And then, the rest of them, just Dallas, man. I've got bets on Dallas. I like Dallas this year from the beginning. I love Dak, and I'm really glad that they covered that spread, although Philadelphia played much better than I expected them to.
That KC statement, it's interesting because when you look at the standings right now, it looks, obviously it's early, a lot can change, but you got 3 2-loss teams sitting in that AFC West, and you've got to expect at least one wild card to come out of there right now. I mean, both those teams are sitting in the wild card by 2 games at the moment in the AFC. So it's going to be interesting with Oakland, Denver, and Kansas City all looking good this year. How many teams they get to the playoffs from that division?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but none of them have played except Kansas City and Oakland, and Kansas City crushed Oakland when that happened, right?
Kansas City is 2-0 in the division. San Diego has played 4 division games and is 1-3. Oakland and Denver are 1-1 in the division.
And they're the 2 leading teams. So I think this division is really going to even out even more as we go on.
They're only leading Kansas City because of a bye. They're all 3 loss. Kansas City just won.
Would anyone say there's a better division in football than the AFC West?
I don't think they're not right now.
Well, record-wise, but I'm looking at the teams, and it's Oakland, Denver, and Kansas City. And, I mean, Kansas City's been the most impressive to me, but none of the 3 have been overly impressive. But then again, looking at all the divisions, there's just not a lot of good football this year.
I don't know. I think that all 3 of those teams have been incredibly impressive.
5-0 on the road is pretty unbelievable.
I mean,
yeah, for Oakland, yeah.
I'm sure we'll talk about it more later, but I think Oakland is probably the most impressive out of that group because they're getting no defense and they're still winning games. When Khalil Mack turns back into Khalil Mack and starts getting 2 sacks a game and picking balls off, that's going to be a scary team. I still think Kansas City is the best team in that division. and the best team possibly in the AFC. But I think that division's very easy because San Diego's not a slouch either. Yeah. I think if they were in any other division, they'd actually be contending to win it, besides maybe the AFC East.
Yeah, Kansas City has given up more points than all above 500 teams except for one, which is the Atlanta Falcons.
Right, but you got to look at where those came. They had one game against the Steelers where they got absolutely massacred. That's accounting for a lot of those points. And that's a confusing game now when you look back at it, too. So who knows what the hell is going to happen.
Before we get into our next NFL topic, I did forget to mention we do have live commenting now. Somebody has taken advantage, who I assume is one of Serio's relatives because the screen name is Serio352. Their comments so far are Brits love draws, though, which I thought was a good point on the ties in London because soccer has ties all the damn time. And everyone knows Doobie loves that deck. So those are our two comments that we've got so far.
I think I can guess who that is.
Feel free to live comment. We have some. Feel free to have some fun with the live comments. We've had people giving points to analysts that mean nothing, but it's fun for them and us anyway. I'll try to get your comments on. I check them every few minutes and every segment. All right, we're going to move on to current MVP pick, and not who you're picking to win it at the end of the season, but like right now, who is the MVP of the league?
Yeah, like you said, you don't win the MVP in the first 8 games of the year. Same thing with college football. You don't win it in the middle of October. But for me, I think it's Derek Carr. We talked a little bit about the Raiders. They're 6-2, 5-0 on the road. I know he got an extra 15 minutes yesterday, but he did throw for 513 yards. Now, that's just – that number is unbelievable. Like I said, he got an extra 15, but 5-0 on the road, 6-2 for a Raiders team that everybody thought would compete, but I don't think they expect them to be 6-2 halfway through the year. If the season ended right now, for me, it's Derek Carr.
I think that is a good pick. I mean, he's been absolutely insane. I'm just going to go in a little bit of a different route and say Julio Jones. The Falcons are a pretty high-scoring, flashy offense, but I think just him alone, what he's doing to all these different defenders and defenses as a whole is just ridiculous, and I can see him keeping this up for the remaining 8 weeks. Second pick would be probably Ezekiel Elliott, but it's got to be Julio.
I'm surprised here that you would say Julio over Matt Ryan because Julio really has disappeared in the past 3 games, whereas Matt Ryan has been on a torrid pace.
But the last 3 games.
Sorry. I mean, it would be an extension of Matt Ryan, I suppose, but my only, I guess, separating factor was, quarterbacks are kind of held to a higher standard where nowadays, like 300-yard games for a quarterback, half the league gets that every week. Where 100 yards receiving is not as
well. I see what you're saying, but when was the last time a receiver won the MVP? You had to do something extraordinary, sure. And if Julio kept up the pace that, I mean, even if he keeps his statistical pace right now, but the fact that 300 yards of his statistics were loaded in one game. I just don't see how you would get right now if you're given the award. I think Matt Ryan would be voted.
Yeah, and actually, I have his stats up right now. I'm not going to add up all these touchdowns, but he only has 4 interceptions, and it looks like probably 20 touchdowns.
No, he's talking about Matt Ryan. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
He's been incredibly efficient.
So you know what? I'll amend that. Julio Jones has been doing well, but I'll give it to Matt Ryan.
Doobie, what do you mean he's disappeared in the last 3 games? He had
combined
over 300 yards in the 2 games before this week. 139 and 174.
Well, I'm just saying compared to
compared to a 300-yard game.
Yeah, it's not fair. It's not fair at all to say that by any means. But I wouldn't say he's been the most dominant receiver in the NFL the past 3 weeks. I think there's other guys each of those weeks. Amari Cooper had a better game this week. The week before that, I mean, every week there's been a guy who's outplayed him. Where I think that to win the MVP as a receiver, you literally have to be the best receiver in the league, like 14 out of the 16 weeks.
Doobie, who are you going with?
I'm going with Kyle. Derek Carr, without question. I love to be different, but I can't go out of the box on this one. the guy is I know he has wide receiver talent, but Michael Crabtree is a guy who's never really been able to do anything anywhere, and he is taking full advantage of Michael Crabtree's ability to be physical, short. He's putting the ball in places that we'll get to this later, but it was very similar what he did against the Bucs, what Deshaun Watson did against Florida State on Saturday, throwing balls in the intermediate range that no one will look at them and say that's a great throw, but if you look back at the tape and see these guys throwing basically what are fade right routes within 15 yards as bullets with such a small window, and having them trusting their receivers to break tackles and make big plays. Incredibly impressive by him. It's not only that, he's winning games. He's unflappable. That game, just to go off topic a little bit here, but that game here in Tampa, the media is losing it on the Bucs. They had a headline today that said Halloweenies because they lost that game. I think it's ridiculous. Oakland's a great team. Like the fact that the Bucs stuck in that long and played up to an Oakland team and they're often stuck with that Oakland team, I think is pretty incredible. I think Oakland's better on both sides of the ball than the Bucs, and so even though it's an away game for them, I think any team who stays that close with Oakland offensively should be proud of themselves. So that's just a side note. But a guy that I don't think anyone's mentioned yet that I think should deserve some consideration, I know his team isn't really a contender, but Matt Stafford, what he's doing without Calvin Johnson, he's having the best season of his career. This guy is going to get paid one of the biggest contracts we've ever seen if he keeps this up. I think it's very impressive. That's completely accurate. The market is there. Look what Drew Brees just got paid. His contract is up.
Drew Brees is a Super Bowl MVP.
And how old is he?
Like 400 years old, but he's
okay. So he gets that contract. You don't think a guy like Matt Stafford, who's coming out and is playing the best season of his career, how old is he? 28, 29?
Yeah, he's younger than 30.
He is in the prime of his career, and he's putting up these numbers. You're not telling me if you put Matt Stafford in a situation elsewhere in the league that had a credible defense, you don't think he'd be leading possibly? Like put him in Minnesota right now and tell me what you think's happening with that team. I know they only have one loss, but are any of their games even close? I think he easily could get the biggest quarterback contract of all time if he keeps this up. There's going to be teams looking to pay people, and one of them is going to be the Denver Broncos.
Well, I guess we will find out. I'm surprised that no one touched on David Johnson. I saw a stat. I think he owns like 40% of that team's or 30% of their yards from scrimmage. I mean,
he's a great pick. Yeah, it's hard to see a running back sustain that pace given the current environment of football. But if he does, he should certainly be in the top 2 or 3 consideration.
So before I make my pick, I do want to point out that I love that y'all say I can't believe no one has mentioned blank when I haven't had my turn yet. That's fun. But I actually was not going to mention David Johnson, so I'm glad you brought that up. The 2 names I kind of had were Matt Ryan and Zeke, who have been talked about. Zeke as a rookie running back, what he's doing up so high up in the league numbers for rushing. He was carrying that team for the first part of the season. Dak's really coming on too. A name I want to throw out for the Seminole homerness in me is Xavier Rhodes, the cornerback from Minnesota. Their defense has been getting them to this 1-loss record, and he has just been shutting down top receivers every time they play. So I just had to give a defensive player and a Seminole some love on that one. Also, we have some nice comments going. We have our first point of the night awarded to Sirio for mentioning the Falcons. You can guess who that's from, guys. Somebody is commenting as blind goat doobie, so I'm not really sure who that is. Is that George?
It's George.
Okay. He just typed a lot, and I don't know if I'm going to read all that because we're already running slowly. He's got like a paragraph going on the comments. Also, Doobie, you have a really sharp haircut. That apparently is going on as well.
Do I get a point for that?
You are not given a point. You just have a sharp haircut.
All right. People out there watching, remember the point system.
George, I'm so sorry, but I'm not going to read this paragraph. We are running behind, so we're going to move right along. We're going to make this one quick. I hope we all have the same answer. Will Cleveland win a game this season?
I say no. I think if they have a chance, it's literally their last game of the season at home against the Chargers. Every other one looks like a guaranteed L for me.
Yeah, you don't see it often, and I never feel like there's a team that can go completely, what do you call it, defeated or winless. But this is a team that's not going to win a game, and I don't even think it's going to be close.
I think they'll win. I think that 1 week they're going to get something happen. They kept games close. It's not like they're getting blown out other than that Patriots game. I think they'll make something happen. I could see them beating Baltimore 2 weeks from now very easily. So I think they'll win one, if not 2 or 3 games.
Deshaun better call up Mr. Manziel and ask him where the good places in Cleveland to live are.
Yeah.
Well, which Deshaun?
No way Kaiser goes above.
Yeah, it's Watson now, but yeah.
Kaiser stay another year.
If you look at mock drafts, everyone's saying Kaiser going number 1. Do you think if I'm the Browns, I'm not stupid enough to take a chance on Kaiser? Watson is the clear guy, but
right.
The
Browns have made worse decisions.
Depends who you ask. Yeah, Sirio is the GM of the Browns. We know he'd be taking Malik Zaire.
I'd be trading up Malik Zaire and Deshaun Kaiser.
You wouldn't need to trade up to get Malik Zaire, buddy.
I'd do it anyways.
So my answer is Cleveland will not win a game. I'll keep it quick. Doobie, you have lost a point for your haircut. So that's just how the point system goes. A request to talk about the Collins trade for New England. You don't often see a team trading away one of their better defensive players in the middle of the season for a third-round compensatory pick, but this is Bill Belichick. He does this stuff every year. Everyone's like, what is he thinking? How can he do this player? And then we see it work out. We see him just plug a guy in that does exactly what he wants him to do, and he goes to the Super Bowl again. We talked about it. He's a sorcerer. It's ridiculous.
And wasn't Collins due for a
Kyle, you cut there. What was that?
I said he was due for a monster payday, right?
Yeah.
I think they just didn't want to pay him what he was going to.
But that's not the thing though, because even if he had if they had lost him, if he had signed somewhere else in free agency, they would have gotten the same compensatory pick.
So,
it doesn't make. It's got to be. I think Belichick's got to know something here.
You know what I like? What I
maybe it's like a domestic violence. Maybe it's injury. There's got to be something coming down the pipe here, or else it doesn't make any sense. Even from the Patriots.
2016. A second something goes bad, it's got to be domestic abuse. The quote that I liked was when he got traded to where was he last year or 2 years ago?
Collins?
I have no idea.
I thought he was in New England.
Let somebody in the live comments answer that question.
Okay. But his quote was, "Thank you for not trading me to a shitty team when he got traded, and now he just got traded to the Browns." I thought that was really funny and super ironic.
Also I realized after actually looking at George's comments, he was doing the quote from Any Given Sunday, the speech from Any Given Sunday. Thank you for that, George. I wish I'd noticed that earlier, and I'm a jerk for not realizing that. Well done, sir. And he typed it out in like 4 lines at a time, so I wasn't like reading it because it kept popping up another segment of it. So that's kind of fantastic. Sirio, you lost a point for joking about domestic abuse. Just not giving the people what they want, apparently. So that's gonna happen. So on to next NFL, going to be quick again. They've got to do something about these overtime rules, in my opinion. You cannot have ties in professional football. Go to college system, do something different. Do what you got to do, but don't have ties. We were one Derek Carr throw away on 4th down at the end of overtime from having 2 ties in the same day. I don't know what system you want to go to. I like the college system, maybe starting further back so you're not already in field goal range, but fix them somehow.
That's a bit unfair, Palmer. We all know that Aguayo would have hit a 57-yarder to win that
game. Personally, I don't so much just care about overtime. I would much rather see the excessive celebration bullshit penalties go away before they change the overtime rules. You want to talk about ratings and why viewers are not watching games. It's because guys get in trouble for any little thing they do to celebrate. I mean, shit, Earl Thomas hugged the referee. Who cares?
Yeah, and that was flagged for excessive celebration.
Yeah, who cares? Who gives a shit? I mean, it's honestly, I don't want to watch because they can't do anything. They have to go hand the ball to the ref. I mean, yeah, the overtime thing sucks, and you want to take it step by step, but they're so stubborn. I can't expect anything to change. If that's not going to change, there's no way they're going to go change rules for overtime.
Nothing's changing while Goodell's in charge at all. Also, I don't know if y'all saw, but the NFL actually released a statement saying that they did a study and that the sole reason, or main reason at least, that their ratings are down is because of the anthem protests, which was the most cowardly
There's no
bullshit
way
move
that's
I've
the case.
ever seen by the NFL, because there's no way that's the truth. There's no way that's why people aren't watching. No one watches the beginning of the games anyway.
Right.
Like, no one's watching the anthem. And you know what people are doing during the anthem at home? Sitting on their couch drinking a beer.
Yeah.
So,
if
like,
they're watching it at all.
That's not why people are not watching their games. And the fact that they released a statement saying that.
That's rude, Palmer. I'm on a knee drinking a beer.
All right. Let's see. Another last NFL topic.
Can I say one thing on that real quick, though?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
To me, it makes sense that they should adopt the college rules, but not make it as easy. I would say have the same college overtime, but instead of starting them at the 25, start them on the 40. I think that would solve all the problems. It would make for a much better overtime. Field goals wouldn't be as much of a factor. The kickoff stays out of it. I just think that's a simple answer to the problem.
All right. All right. So then to the last topic: should the Cowboys trade Romo? And this is assuming, as I personally do, that there is value for Romo. People will give up draft picks for this guy.
And personally, I think there is value for him, but I think that backup quarterbacks in this day and age, with all the injuries you see to starters, I think they're a lot more valuable than they used to be. So I don't think it happens in season, because as good as Dak has been, there's always a chance that he takes a hit when he scrambles, and then all of a sudden you need Romo. So I don't think they're going to do it, nor should they. But I think you might see in the March or April timeframe, you might see him traded for some kind of pick if Prescott finishes the year healthy and as successful as he's been.
Yeah, so I get the thought process behind it, but I just don't think there's any specific need to trade him. I mean, in the sense that I think the value you're getting with Romo from having him on the bench, fueling Prescott, kind of mentoring him, and then obviously, like Kyle said, if anything happens to Dak, you have him as a backup, is well worth any potential you're going to get with Romo. I mean, this guy's had 2 back surgeries. He's at the back end of his career. I don't think teams are going to pay nearly as high a price as you think, Palmer, because you're going to get, maybe 2 more years, 2 more really, really productive years out of Romo, and then he's going to be looking for a 4-year, and I just don't see it working out versus the value of keeping him.
I think that if you can get a top 3 round pick out of Romo, you should trade him.
I don't think teams are going to give that up, though.
Well, what I was about to say is I think there's one team that would. If the Jets win 2 more games in a row here and they're over 500, I think the Jets would give up a top 3 round pick. That's the only team I ever see it happening with. I think it'd be a stupid decision by the Jets. The Broncos are the only team that really needs a quarterback that actually is a contender. Houston, there's no way that they're giving up on Osweiler this early when they just
but they need a quarterback.
They do, but that's just a bad contract. So I think the only team stupid enough to trade for an injury-riddled quarterback like Romo is the Jets. But the only way that Jerry Jones is letting his hands off of Tony Romo is a top 3 round pick. It might take a top 2 round pick to get Romo out of Jerry Jones' hands. He loves that guy. So
right. And what Sirio said, right? He's not a cancer to the team. He hasn't proven to be pissed off that he's not coming in. So like what Sirio said, like what value do you get? I mean, you let him mentor Prescott, and just in case he goes down, I mean, if he starts complaining about PT, then maybe you move him.
Then it's a more pressing issue. But now,
exactly.
So real quick, what's the offer that you get the phone call and you say, yeah, we got to trade him anyway?
Top 3 rounds.
Yeah. I honestly would say 1st or 2nd round. I'm not even sure a 3rd round does it for me.
But, I mean, realistically, do you think a team's going to give up a 1st round for Romo?
No way.
I've seen dumber things happen in the NFL front office.
Palmer's a Rams fan, so he has seen some idiotic things.
I've seen dumber things happen, man.
The ceiling, I would say, is 2nd round. I can't see even the Jets being stupid enough to give up more than a 2nd round pick.
All right, we're going to hop on over from NFL. Gone a little longer than I thought on that, so it's going to go long because there's no way we're going to be quick in college football because we're just not. So we're moving on to college football. I'm sorry about the more comments about the NFL we're not going to get to. we're going to start off like we did in the NFL, just general reactions. If they want to talk about the picks, they will, which they likely will, especially, I believe, Doobie this week. So we'll start that off.
Yeah, Doobie did pick up a couple games back on me in the against the spread. I was 3 back last week. I'm now 5 back. He had a pretty good week. I did have Northwestern to cover against Ohio State. I was the only one to have that pick. So that's really the only one that I took compared to everybody else. But I did go 11-9 against the spread, 15-5 straight up to kind of keep my lead in the straight up area. I'm hoping to finish that through the rest of the year. Really shocked by Tennessee and South Carolina. Can't believe Tennessee has fallen off a cliff, but I'll let Palmer handle that because I know how much he loves Rocky Top. And then the Notre Dame Miami game, it's no shock to me that Miami's fallen off a cliff. They've done this for the past 4 years every single time they play Florida State and then lose in heartbreaking fashion. So I expect Pitt to beat them again next week to drop them to 4-5 personally.
Yeah, I agree 100%. The 2 games that I really wanted to go through, one, Notre Dame, they did well. They rebounded like a championship-winning team that they are. And second was the UF Georgia game. You know, I'm not even concerned that I was the only one that got it right, which I was. But I just thought that was a great game. I'm a big fan of the River City rivalry. Not to be called. What is it? What was it? And now they changed it.
So just for the fans, for those of you that don't know, this game since like the 50s has been called the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. That is the name of the rivalry. That is the name of the game. Apparently, both the universities thought that was too pejorative, and they didn't like the alcoholic context of it. And so they asked the media to change the name. They asked all the companies to print new shirts so they could make more money off of it. Nobody is going to stop calling it the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. That's all I will ever refer to it as.
Political correctness is ruining America.
It's true.
Syria would agree with that.
Build that wall. No, but I'm a big fan, and I thought that was one of the better games. Even though both teams are pretty unimpressive, I'm a big fan of that game. Sorry, Perry. I just want to do one more. Last one was Texas. I'm going to touch on them in one of our later segments, but I got Texas right as well. Perry and Palmer did, and they both called it straight up. But that was another great game to watch. Okay, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Syria. Appreciate it. I will speak to my picks. 12-8. Only one who went above 500 this week. All is right in the world again. Like Kyle said, I've got a little bit of a lead, but Kyle's still got an impressive record going.
Sorry, Doobie, you had the old version. Kyle caught 2 mistakes. Yeah. You were 13-7, and Kyle was above 500 at 11-9.
Fair enough. I'll take it. I was just complimenting Kyle anyways. So very impressive that he is that far above 500 at 10 whatever he is now, but he's at least 104-92. So good for him and good for me as well. As far as my picks specifically, I had a few picks that really turned out to be good ones. Me and Kyle both had Oklahoma State straight up. Obviously, that was the case. Michigan State covering against Michigan. I like that one. I was the only one who had UVA covering against Louisville. Obviously, that became the case, and really UVA should have won that game. Wyoming, I was the only one who had Wyoming covering against Boise State, and as the entire college football world knows, because that was the most momentous game of the weekend, Wyoming won that game. And then finally, I will just speak to which one? Nope, I don't have any others to speak to. That's about it.
So I'm not going to quite get to Tennessee yet, Sirio, or Kyle, whoever mentioned I was going to talk about Tennessee because I listened to Rocky Top. That will be later. I don't want to talk about picks because the only thing I almost did right was picking USC straight up because, God, do I hate Tennessee.
I want everybody to notice that Palmer rarely talks about his picks because he consistently is in last place.
Oh, I am awful this year. It has been miserable. I was 5-15 against the spread this week. Thank God I'm 4 and don't have enough money to put anything, like any actual bets on these picks because it would be a very bad year for me. I don't know what's going on this year. I was not nearly this bad last year.
To be fair, Palmer, as Serial mentioned, me and you were the only ones to pick Texas straight up. So if you put your entire fortune on that, you probably would have made some money.
Well, hey, you know that Charlie Strong is like undefeated against top 12 teams as a Texas head coach, right? Cool. He's like 4-0 against top 12 teams as a Texas head coach because that makes any kind of sense.
He needs to just fill up that schedule with non-conference top 10 teams and just go to work.
It just makes zero sense to me. That's actually what I want to talk about is like his record against the top 12 as opposed to everybody else where they always lose. And Texas sitting there, they're just like, stop doing this. We want to fire you and hire Tom Herman, but if you win this game, like how do we just fire you?
Well, at that point, is Texas? You think they're wavering on that right now?
No, Tom Herman's the head coach next year.
UCF should have beaten Houston. They were up by what, 21 points?
24-3 at the half. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean
that's because Tom Herman is checked out. He's completely checked out.
That's not an excuse. As a Florida State fan, if Jimbo left for LSU for some reason, I wouldn't want Tom Herman now.
I'm just letting you know he's gonna be the UT coach. I think it's gonna happen. I'm convinced it's gonna happen.
I don't know, man.
All these reports came out that he's like been talking to them all year. His players gave up on him. They didn't have anything to play for. They pissed their coaches leaving.
Do you think the Texas boosters are just going to take that for what it is? I find that hard to believe.
Who knows? I don't know what the Texas boosters think because those guys are kind of nuts.
I'm just saying, if Herman goes out and loses a couple more games.
Well, yeah, if he continues it, but I'll say this: if they've already like called him and made the decision, then I think if that's why he's actually falling apart, and that's one thing. If they're still evaluating, you're right. Then they're going to second guess that pretty much.
That's like the epitome of a silent commit. If they've really already called him and offered that job. Jesus Christ.
There were reports that it was pretty much a done deal like 3 weeks ago.
Wouldn't it be fantastic if Charlie Strong then went ahead and took the Houston job and had a better record next year than Texas did? I would love that.
It would be fantastic. There's nothing better than the coaching carousel. All right, so we're
going to
move on.
Something really quick, Palmer, really quick. With that Texas top 10, that is correct. They did lose to a number 11 ranked Notre Dame. So just wanted to throw that in there.
Okay, my bad. So I did.
What do you mean?
No, you were right. You were right.
They won.
Yeah, I know. Notre Dame won. This was last year.
Oh.
Yes. Okay. It's some crazy good record. I thought it was 4-0. I saw the stat on Saturday.
It is 4-0 against top 10, but that's a deceiving
top 10.
stat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it said top 12. Sirio got a +1 by the way for mentioning underage drinking. I missed that. Good job, Sirio. I can no longer support breaking of the law, so I will not support that statement. We're going to talk now.
Breaking of the law, because then you can defend it.
Yeah, but I can't encourage it. So we're going to now talk about Florida State and the Clemson game. I'm sorry for those of you that aren't FSU fans. We got to go on a bit of a rant here, but it also was one of the best games of the weekend and most important games of the weekend, so it deserves some time anyway. So let's get going.
Yeah, I know that me and Doobie were both there in person, and I will say that that was probably the best 4 quarters of football Florida State's played all year. Didn't exactly turn out how we wanted, but it was a really fun game to watch. I know it's a minor feat, but I would have to imagine that the recruiting outlook after that game was just absolutely a huge success. The place was insane, especially after Dalvin goes 70 to make it 28-20. I would put it up there with Oklahoma after Rashad scored, and I would put it above Notre Dame and Miami in 2014, honestly. That was one of the loudest I've ever seen that place. Good game. I won't get in too much about the awful chop block because I'm sure everybody else will. But I know Sirio had said in our group that he kind of saw it on TV. When they showed the replay on the Jumbotron a couple times, I just didn't. And so it frustrated me. I realized Florida State had opportunities to win the game afterwards, and that's what Jimbo said in his presser. But if Florida State goes and scores even 3 points on that drive, which they were at least primed to do, that changes the whole finish of that game. And honestly, if they go score 7, which they probably would have, I think Clemson probably dies right there. So while Florida State had their opportunities, that absolutely changed the game. And then you add 15 more on for the unsportsmanlike. Otherwise, I'm still happy with where Florida State's moving forward. And Clemson's a good football team. They'll be a playoff team.
Yeah. So just the first thing on the TV, they did a horrible job And I take it back. Originally, I said that I thought it was a chop block, even though I said it was soft. But it was one of those things where I think the TV wanted to just not show how bad of a call it was. So they showed it like one time, and they showed it at an angle that made it look like it. But I disagree. I don't think that it was worthy of a call. But moving on, I've pretty much written this season off. We're not going to win the ACC, and we're not going to be playing in the playoffs. So the one big takeaway that I had from this game was Naquan Murray, whose nickname is Noonie, I just found out. That kid's going to be a stud. And is George Campbell going to be back next season?
Yeah, he'll be back next season.
Next season. Yeah, the two of them.
Though there's a little bit of chatter he may move to defensive back.
Really? Okay. But
hard for me to buy into George Campbell when we haven't seen him do a damn thing yet. But I agree, the potential is there.
He looked great in the Garnet and Gold game last year, which I was able to see. And just he's a 5-star as well. So I think that him and the Naquan Murray, I think we're going to have an absolute beast pairing.
And so was Erman Lane.
Yeah, I know. But
Great safety.
Well, then they could. Yeah, if George Campbell turns out to be as good of a DB as Erman Lane, we're in good shape.
Yeah. So no, that's pretty much it. I know Doobie's probably going to want to take us through the entire game. So I just wanted to just talk on that one takeaway that I had. I think Naquan and George Campbell are going to be fantastic for Francois.
I'm not going to talk on the entire game. Thank you, though, Siri. I appreciate the shout-out. I will say Erman Lane, just because you brought him up, he had one of the best hits. It was on the goal line, didn't really factor in, but the form tackle that he put on, I think it was Williams, but it could have been another receiver, was absolutely awesome. But, yeah, that game, I'm nothing but proud of the Florida State Seminoles for that game. That's one of the most proud I've been, that is the most proud I've been of that team since the 2013 National Championship. I think they played to the best of their ability outside of the offensive line, which is a mess, and Trickett hopefully will retire. I love the guy. I think he's a great guy. I would never want to fire him, but hopefully he will choose to go because he knows he's not at his best. That being said, Dalvin, we'll talk more about him later, I'm sure. Absolutely incredible. And Kyle, you are 100% right. That was such a crazy atmosphere in there, the loudest I've heard it since that Oklahoma game. And it's crazy because we didn't have that as much on the line as we usually do. And it's great to see Florida State fans coming out and supporting. I remember saying it last year when Texas played Oklahoma. They had no chance at anything except maybe being bowl eligible, and they had such a great crowd when they pulled that upset. It almost reminded me of that, not to the same extent, but we knew we weren't winning the ACC. We knew we're not making the playoff, and the crowd still showed up, and I've never seen them cheer as hard as they did. Absolutely incredible atmosphere outside of the Champions Club. But the last thing I'll say is this.
Yeah.
If that's a chop block, I quit watching football because that is absurd. That's all. I don't need to go any further into it.
If that's a chop block, they showed on TV,
I'm done.
Was behind. So it was.
Well, technically, that's a screenshot from the television broadcast, so they definitely showed that angle on TV.
That was the live.
Ooh, I think that deserves a minus point for Serial, but I could be wrong.
I said TV.
It's up to the viewers.
That was the live. I said that they only showed the replay. The replay that they showed was over the FSU.
Maybe.
Serial's right. That could have been the live angle, right?
It's possible.
That was because it had the score on it.
So what I was actually going to start out with is something that got brought up in our comment section, so I'm glad it did. On that blown coverage at the end, that last Clemson touchdown, we had a true freshman third-string safety in and a second-string sophomore safety in because of Trey Marshall's ejection. Sadly, by the book, that is the correct call. That is targeting, and you get ejected. The problem is that he went for the tackle, and then as he was about to hit him, the receiver ducked at the last second and put his head down there to create the targeting. The rule needs to be changed because that is textbook targeting by the book. But there's no way it should be. I mean, you can't blame a DB for going at his shoulder and chest area, and then the receiver ducks into it to make it targeting. But after we had a second and third string safety and a third string 170-pound true freshman safety in the game, I mean, you're not going to do well in the secondary. Also, as great of a game as Dalvin had, he was amazing. He really dropped one right in his basket that would have put him in so much open space down the field that there's no way he does not score a touchdown. That was a huge moment, and it just sucks. I can't get mad at him because of what he did in that game, but he really had a chance there to make a huge play, and that was a tough one. As much as he has improved his receiving this year.
Just to bring up one thing that you mentioned there, I'm blanking on what you mentioned there. I had something to say on it.
The targeting and the
targeting, yeah. So that's fine. That I definitely think that was the right call on the targeting on us. Like you said, that's the rule. Call it until they change it. But that being said, there was also targeting against DeAndre Francois by the book, lowering the crown of the helmet and putting it straight into someone's chest just because it's not helmet to helmet is still a penalty. That should have been called as well, and it was not. And to parlay that, DeAndre Francois remains the toughest quarterback in college football. He had a fantastic game, and I think it's hard to say that you don't see a bright future from this kid.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because, like you said, a lot of people think it just got to be a blow to the head. With a crown to the helmet to any defenseless player, which after Francois lets go of the ball, after he lets go and takes 2 steps forward, he's technically defenseless. A crown of the player to the sternum doesn't matter. If it's the crown of the helmet to a defenseless player, by the book, that's targeting. So Jimbo's right. A lot of people probably disagreed with him because it wasn't to the head. But if you go look at that rule, that's exactly how it's written.
All right, we are going to move on now. We are running along, so we're going to try to pick up the pace a little bit again. We're going to move off FSU now. Going into the 4 undefeateds that fell: Boise, Nebraska, Baylor, and I am randomly forgetting one at the top of my head because I'm not looking at the list right now.
West Virginia.
West Virginia. Thank you. So what was maybe the most surprising of that? What did y'all think about these undefeateds going down?
Well, I mean, I thought Boise State had a clear path to a New Year's Six game by going undefeated. I'm shocked they lost to Wyoming. That was the one that really surprised me. I never saw either Big 12 team running the table and being a playoff team, so neither of those were shocking. I knew they were kind of, on the edge really throughout the rest of their schedules. And Nebraska hadn't played a whole lot. They're getting into the meat of their schedule. We might start to see them go downhill. For me, the only one that was truly shocking was the Boise State one.
Yeah, I said at the very beginning that I didn't think a single team would go undefeated. So I don't know if that makes me look smart or stupid at this point with so many teams still there. But it really wasn't that much of a surprise. Pretty much agree with everything Kyle said. I think Nebraska is the next one to go down, and that would leave – would that leave just Washington?
Nebraska went down this weekend.
Nebraska lost to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Cheers. Sorry, I misread this. Yeah.
There's 3 left, right?
Michigan.
4.
4. Yeah, sorry.
Who's the 4th? Clemson?
Nebraska, Boise State, West Virginia, and Baylor.
No, the four that are left.
Oh,
it's Clemson, Alabama, Washington, and Michigan.
The top 4 teams of the country.
Yep.
There we go. Yeah, so I don't think any of them will, but pretty much just agree with everything Kyle said.
Yeah, I was not shocked by any of them. I was the only one who picked Boise State to not perform well, so I was certainly not shocked. I didn't see any of those teams going undefeated, so that's what it is. I won't go any further into it. I guess if we wanted to, Palmer, you can decide, but a discussion on if we think anyone will end up undefeated going into the playoff. But other than that, I don't think that any of these were a surprise.
Nobody will end up undefeated going to the playoff, but a team will end up undefeated. It's the Row Your Boat, Western Michigan, with PJ Fleck that we have not mentioned. So there are 5 undefeated teams in the country. Boise was pretty surprising to me. I mean, they really kind of dropped the ball there. Wyoming, I've heard very few people besides Doobie that actually called that. It's happened a few places, but he also didn't call the upset. That was a tough call to make.
That is true.
I think the Big 12 is so happy Baylor lost. Not so much at West Virginia, but they really didn't want the Baylor Bears to be holding up that conference after everything has happened. So I think as a conference, they were a little sigh of relief on that Texas win. So we're going to move into real quick. I don't know if anyone else is going to talk about this except me. Tennessee is a program. I love Rocky Top because I love how dysfunctional this program is. Josh Dobbs is awful and a terrible player, even though he's a freaking genius academically. But now today, Doobie and I were talking about earlier in the day, their running back that's like top 5 or 6 in rushing yards all time for the program, Jalen Hurd. All these rumors come out on social media that he's going to transfer. Then all these rumors that he's changed his mind, he's not. And then all of a sudden, Butch Jones confirms personally that Jalen Hurd is going to transfer because the coaches have lied to him. They've not used him in the way he was promised he'd be used, and now he wants to go play wide receiver or tight end at another school. Obviously, trying to have his draft stock a little bit, but just kind of a mess going on there. They're kind of collapsing. I don't know if losing to South Carolina was just losing to South Carolina when South Carolina started Jake Bentley, who is a true freshman who graduated high school as a junior a year early, came to college and is a true freshman, and just beat Tennessee, which might be just the greatest thing of all time. They lost to Will Muschamp as a head coach. It just goes on and on for Tennessee. I don't know if anyone else wants to talk about them, but I had to get my rant in about Tennessee.
Yeah, you pretty much covered it for me. I think Jalen Hurd is probably smart, if I'm being honest, to go ahead and move forward. He wants to have an NFL career. It's probably at wide receiver or tight end. If he really wants to do that and he doesn't think the place to play is Tennessee, there's got to be some other kind of writing on the wall too, some kind of inner turmoil that we don't know about yet. It's probably not domestic violence though. So I don't know. I mean, I think good for Jalen Hurd, but I mean, it sucks for Tennessee. Also sucks that UF is now going to waltz into the SEC championship game with really not having to do anything.
Yeah, nothing for me.
I'll just say that Tennessee's probably just as well off. Amakara is a pretty good running back, if that's how you pronounce his name. I think that's probably why Hurd's upset. But I'll take Hurd as a receiver or a tight end at Florida State if he wants to come.
Maybe defensive back.
Kamara is the running back, and yeah, he's the better running back in my opinion as well. Okay, so on to our usual topics that we go through every week. Heisman leaders, 3 to 5. Usually 3 is a pretty good number, but if you got a few extras, obviously throw them in.
Yeah, I'm not going to go numbers wise as far as 1, 2, 3, but I will say I think the ACC proved this week they deserve 3 finalists. I don't think we don't know yet how they'll finish the year, but I think that Cook, Watson, and Jackson all absolutely deserve to be in New York. We'll see how many they actually invite. But as Jackson finishes the year, Watson continues to play well. He made some great throws. And Cook is literally Florida State's offense, or has been over the past 3 or 4 weeks, and he's just absolutely monstrous when he gets on the edge. I think we have shown, the ACC has shown that all 3 of those guys deserve to at least be considered and invited.
Yep, I have the exact same ones. I have 4, with the 4th being Jabril Peppers. He is a beast on all 3 phases of the game, but I have him coming in at 4th, and I know that this will probably cause a little bit of turmoil. Dalvin is still low in my rankings at 3, and then 1 is a tie, in my opinion, Deshaun Watson and Lamar Jackson. I still can't differentiate them.
I'm not going to say too much different, except that I don't have Deshaun Watson in my top 3. I'd put him at 4. The reason being is that I think, given the treatment of a few years back, this is just me being sour, but if Jameis can't get considered for the Heisman when he has a statistically subpar year but still leads his teams to wins in a gutsy way, I don't know why Deshaun Watson deserves to be, because their seasons are really not all that different. So I think that he's going to probably be a finalist, and I think he's the best NFL-ready quarterback there, and I think he's the best player in college football, but I have him outside of my top 4. Outside of my top 3, my number 1 is Lamar Jackson. I was wrong at the start of the year. I was wrong halfway through the year. I was wrong all the way through. JT Barrett's completely out, and Lamar Jackson's going to have to really mess up. I've got Jabril Peppers at 2. I'm sorry, Graham. I was wrong again. The media's got too much hype. Now when they lose to Ohio State, this will all go away, but at this point you can't. I've got Dalvin Cook at 3. I think that the race finishes with Lamar as 1, Dalvin as 2, and Deshaun Watson is 3. But Dalvin Cook, I know that a lot of media aren't considering it right now, but you're finishing it up with 3 very easy rushing defenses, and if he goes off for 200-plus in all those games, we could very well see him giving a push towards Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I got Jackson clear cut right now as 1. I think it's his to lose. He had his moment that he could have lost it, and then what does he do with a minute left in the game that they might lose to a bad team? He drives them directly down the field, throws an absolute bullet of a touchdown pass. Beautiful pass to win the game. I got Browning at number 2 at Washington because I don't see them losing another game. I think they go undefeated, and I think he's sitting there with crazy stats at the end of the year undefeated, and he's going to be in New York. I have Cook at 3. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. He's going off this year. And they've done it before. I wouldn't be shocked if they do it again. Almost like a career thing. He's obviously going pro next year. Only 2 players in the Power 5 conferences since 2004 have had 3 seasons with 1,000 rushing yards and at least 200 receiving. It's Jaquiz Rogers and Dalvin Cook. So 2004, 2 players. He's got to get the Heisman or to New York. Sorry, I think for the Heisman ceremony. I think Jabril Peppers, as much as I would love to see him and thinks he deserves it, I think the novelty wears off toward the end of the season, and he kind of drops out of those numbers, sadly, but it's what I think happens. We got a few comments, points, too many to talk about at the moment. We'll go over them at the end. Apparently, Butch Kongbo, if you guys remember Jonathan Kongbo for Tennessee, who was a big recruit last year, apparently – do you know anything about this, guys? Put a picture of him hanging up his cleats after the game. Everyone thought he was quitting the team. Butch Jones apparently came out and said, "Oh, no, he just lost a game of FIFA. That's all that was." I know nothing about this. Do y'all?
No, I haven't heard that.
I'm going to have to look that up. We'll get back to it next week. That might be hilarious, and I'll have to find out. We're going to move on to the most disappointing team. As always, you can go with of the week or of the season, whatever you want to go with.
Yeah, since I know we're running short on time, I'm going to group my disappointing and impressive together. For me, I'm going to go with Georgia. Just a serious lack of offense. I don't understand it. It was really hard. I know Sirius said he liked the game. It was really hard for me to watch it at 3:30. It seemed like every time I looked up, Easton was trying to throw the ball out of bounds. At one point, he did make an accurate throw and hit the pylon. That was pretty impressive. But other than that, just Georgia really – they've had top recruiting classes. You would think that it would turn into talent on the field. I know they lost a lot, but they also returned a lot in the same instance. So for them to be so offensively maligned kind of shocks me. My impressive team is Penn State. They followed up a big Ohio State win with an absolute beatdown of Purdue. I know they were struggling at the end of the first half, but I think James Franklin should officially be off the hot seat.
So, yeah, I'll do the same by lumping these 2 categories together. Disappointing UCF. They had a chance to really make a statement and turn the corner on their program by beating a Houston team. They did not do that in the second half. That could really affect them as a program moving forward. If they would have gotten that win, the hype train would have been full speed ahead. Most impressive, it's a split honor this week. First is going to be Texas taking down the undefeated. I thought they played really well as a team. And then also Notre Dame, they're back on it. It's not impossible to say that they're not going to win it all this year.
Jesus Christ.
Disappointing team. I'm gonna have to go with Ohio State. I've been the biggest Ohio State guy on this podcast all year, but they once again went out and struggled. They honestly haven't played a good game in their past 4 or 5 games. They very well could have lost to Northwestern. JT Barrett has played himself out of the Heisman race, in my opinion, even if they do beat Michigan, which I still believe they will because Urban Meyer's an evil genius. But if I'm an Ohio State guy, I'm nearly as disappointed in that team as I am as a Florida State fan, because if you put Ohio State up against the same schedule, I really don't see them having, a much better record. So, you look at that, that's got to be disappointing for them. Most impressive, I'm gonna have to go with Clemson. This team, I think what they got was the best shot of that FSU team, not just how they've played this season, but the best shot they could have given, no matter what. If that was an undefeated FSU team, I think that's the best they play against Clemson. Obviously, the offensive line has issues, but I don't think that would have been solved by anything. We haven't taken injuries there or anything. Maybe Derwin James being back changes that game enough for Florida State to win it, but for Clemson to play well enough to overcome. They played well in pretty much every facet. Stopping Cook is difficult, and they didn't do a good job of that in the second half. But this team, to me, I said it last week, I'll say it again, I see them winning the national championship. Deshaun Watson is the most impressive NFL-ready quarterback I've seen, He makes throws that no one else in the NCAA can make. I'm extremely impressed by them, and I think they deserve a lot of credit. And I personally think they should be ranked above Michigan because Michigan's played absolutely no one, and I think this is a Harbaugh thing rather than a real team thing. But Auburn, let's not forget that they beat Auburn too, and Auburn's looking at a good team. And to parlay that, Ole Miss should definitely be considered one of the most disappointing teams as well because of how they've fallen apart.
Doobie's a mind reader and gave me a fantastic transition. My most impressive team, I'll go first because of it, is Auburn, which I hate saying. My girlfriend might leave me for saying it, but Auburn looks fantastic. Their defense has been great all year, nonstop. And now that their offensive line is playing like one of the best in the country and their running game is just destroying people, they look fantastic. They look like they're going to be the only real test for Alabama all season. In that Iron Bowl. I mean, they're just playing. I take it back. Ole Miss gave them a test. But yeah, Auburn has really impressed me as much as I hate it. They look fantastic right now, and they're really on a roll. But most disappointing, I'm not going to talk much about it because it's been talked about, but it was UGA. Really just awful offense. The O-line is terrible. The offensive coordinator doesn't know what he's doing. There's definitely a talent disparity there that the current recruiting class is pretty solid, so maybe in a few years it'll get fixed. I hope people give Kirby time. This is a new offensive coordinator, new defensive system, new offensive system, true freshman quarterback. Should not have expected much from it, so hopefully they can get better over the next few years. Let's see. Most impressive team is by far the ACC officiating crew, really helping Clemson solidify their trip to the playoffs. It was a poor crew, but it was poor both ways. I mean, Clemson also did have the third down where I believe it was Naughty just literally grabbed onto Deshaun Watson's face mask, very clearly right behind the line of scrimmage. It wasn't called and they had to punt. It was a bad crew, generally. We're going to move on now to our next topic, which is my favorite topic, and mine's going to be nice and simple to figure out who I'm going with, but it's a reverse Heisman. Big player on a big team, or not necessarily, but who sucks so much that they're screwing their team over. Kyle, start us off as always.
Third week in a row, I'm going with the same guy, Bradley Kaya from the University of Miami. You should have gone to Boise State. Even then, you might have had a chance to beat Florida State. No shot at the University of Miami.
I like that pick a lot. Mine is going to be the FSU offensive line. They were horrible for us. They've been horrible for us. Unless we figure something out, they're probably going to keep costing us games. Just absolutely horrible.
I'm going to have to go with Kyle here. It's been a trend this podcast that I don't usually fall into, but Kaya, man, has pushed himself out of draft boards, in my opinion, probably pushed himself out of the first round. I mean, Richt could easily win this award too. Notre Dame, I know they're the best team in the country, but to go out and lose to them after their previous week's performances, it's not like they're getting crushed. So I guess Rick deserves credit for that because they haven't completely given up like they have in past years. But Kaya, man, just looking at his career projection, has really, really hurt himself. So I got to give it to him as well.
I'm going with my favorite reverse Heisman and the reason I created the title in the first place, Joshua Dobbs from Tennessee. He is not a good quarterback. Tennessee is not a good team, and they lost to South Carolina, and I love it. Let's see. Also, is anyone else it's just not nearly as fun when Notre Dame actually wins, because then when Sirio says they're good, it almost works. I much prefer when Notre Dame loses and is terrible, and yet he still calls them awesome. It's just way more value in my opinion. So
I also prefer it when it's Graham saying it than Sirio.
Agreed.
Yeah. When Graham is Sirio talking about Notre Dame, it might be the best moments this podcast has. Also, on the comment section, which is very true, and it's to Cal's point, the offensive line is really bad. Alec Everly is really, really bad. The Florida State center is clueless out there. He misses blocks.
The dude gets whipped every single drive.
Time. And to be fair, Clemson's defensive tackles are monsters. They are
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
freaking good. They might have the best D line in the country. And those are young guys, so yay for us for the next few years going against that.
Right.
Well, here's the thing I want to ask though. Do you think that those false start penalties, who's that the fault of? Is it Ellerby, however you say his name? Is it DeAndre Francois' cadence, or is it Trickett just not having them ready? Because it wasn't
Yeah.
loud when we were taking snaps.
I'm going with
Yeah,
the third
those
one. I'm going with the
two
third one.
false starts at home in a crucial moment. Jimbo said it himself. He's like, there's no reason that should ever happen in any way. And, Jimbo is claiming that it doesn't happen in practices, so he doesn't know why it's happening in games. But you just can't have that. I mean, that's as bad as it gets, really. So I don't know. Maybe one of our young guys can step up next year. We got a lot of young linemen, but the false starts are a joke, and we've been false start university for like 3 years now, and I'm getting pretty sick of it. Trickett's just got to go. We're gonna move on now to the preview of next week, nice and short. 2 ranked matchups this week. It is number 9 Nebraska. That's right, they did not drop out of the top 10 against a number 6 Ohio State, and then we have what I am so excited to see. Let's go Edo. It is number 1 Alabama at number 15 LSU.
Yeah, two good games. Like I said earlier, I think this is where we start to see Nebraska kind of hit a downward trend. I think Ohio State dominates this one at home. I really like the matchup for the Buckeyes, so won't go too much into that one there. Palmer, I know you said earlier you think that Auburn might be the toughest game left for Alabama. I think
I take it back immediately because I'm an idiot and forgot they play LSU this weekend.
Yeah, so at number 15 LSU, night game at Death Valley. I think including the SEC championship, this is Bama's toughest game of the year. Really excited to watch it. Not excited that we play at 7 o'clock and I'm going to have to switch back and forth, but it should be a lot of fun. And then for other games, like I said, I talked about Knowles, NC State. This is a classic letdown game for us, something we don't really play well in Raleigh, haven't over the last 8 to 10 years. So hopefully we can bounce back and not let one loss become 2. And then I talked about Pitt and Miami, and I'm thinking the downfall of the Canes continues. A noon game in Miami, there will probably be more people in Raleigh for Florida State than there are in Miami for the Canes.
No, that's a guarantee. Yeah, pretty much saying what Kyle said about the Nebraska game. I think this is the part where Nebraska kind of falls apart, and Ohio State is going to come back roaring. I think this is going to be like a 3-score victory for the Buckeyes. For Alabama LSU, I mean, you have to pick Alabama, but I'm just really excited to watch it. I'm not interested in who wins or who loses, but I think it's just going to be one of those games, kind of like what we had back in, correct me, the year 2011, was it, when they played twice in the championship?
Yeah.
Does anyone remember?
Yeah, it was 11, I believe.
11?
Off the top of my head, 11 is correct.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be one of those games again where it's just leave everything on the field until the final whistle, and I'm excited for it.
This isn't a great week of college football. I'm not excited about the Nebraska-Ohio State game. I do think Ohio State wins, but I do think it's probably ugly again. Would love to see Nebraska come out and pull that upset and just end Urban Meyer's hopes and dreams right then and there. And then to have Ohio State go out and beat Michigan so that the Big Ten possibly just gets completely shut out. That would be my true dream there. Other than that, like everyone else said, LSU, Alabama, I think that is going to be a very tough game. I would love to see Edo win that and basically win the job at LSU. So hopefully that happens. I don't think it will, but I would love to see it. Other games from the weekend that I think are very interesting. This is not me being comical. Navy, Notre Dame, I think is a very interesting game, and I think that Notre Dame could very well go to 3-6 in that game. It's at 11:30 a.m. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of inspiration there, and in order to beat a triple option team, you need to be very prepared. I don't know that Notre Dame can do that in that game. And then, the only other one that I find even somewhat appealing is the Penn State-Iowa game. Can Penn State keep it going? Can they beat an Iowa team that's been disappointing this year? So that will be very interesting to see. The last thing I have to say about it is what happened to Thursday nights in college football?
I don't think that happens till later.
No, they've been playing the games since the start of the season. My point is that every year in the past, when you get to this point in the season, there've been good matchups on Thursday nights, and it's not like this schedule has been like, oh, teams fell apart. These were supposed to be great matchups. None of these are even like remotely good anticipated matchups. I don't get it. Are they caving to the NFL? Is that what's happening, or is it just that the scheduling happened too far ahead of time? I really don't understand, but I think college needs Thursday nights to get better, or this is going to really affect the viewership as a whole.
I think you forgot about Maction on Tuesdays, though.
Well, we do get Maction back this week, which does change everything.
Yeah. By the way, that is a pick. We have a pick on the Maction, so y'all, we're gonna have to get that in early.
Nice.
Yeah. I think it has a little to do with top teams not wanting Thursday night games and lobbying not to have Thursday night games, because that's really difficult. If you think you're a team that might win your conference and a loss could hurt you, you're lobbying like crazy not to get a Thursday night game. That's hell on a team. You don't want that.
Do you think that Friday night games are any better? Like, do you think teams look at them and they prefer them? Because big teams are taking Friday night games. We had Stanford, Washington on our Friday night. We've got, the ACC's adopting Friday nights, and I think that's absurd because it violates the number one rule of college football is you don't mess with high school. So I think it's absolutely disgusting that they're doing that. But that doesn't make a ton of. It's got to be the networks. It's got to be ESPN.
I don't know what's causing it, but it's a good point. It's an interesting thing to look into. I am all in for Edo, LSU over Alabama. Edo is pulling it off. He's doing it. He's taking it. Edo is the man. I love him. LSU is going to beat Alabama in just a sloppy, awful football game to watch.
I'm holding you to that when we make our picks.
Oh, be ready. It's good. LSU straight up's going on the sheet. My record can't get any worse. Who cares? But no, I truly am going with this. Also, just for the fans out there, a great call out from our comment section. The Bears are up. It was 13-0. Vikings just kicked a field goal. Bears will be up 13-3 at the half on Minnesota.
Who called
it?
There
you go, Doobie. This is Chicago D.
Go Bears D.
Who called it?
Howard having a heck of a game for the Bears with 80 yards and a touchdown so far in the first half. Let's see any other comments we want. Nothing fantastic. Any other thoughts on any of topics? Anything y'all want to say before we log off for the night? We're at about an hour and 20 minutes.
Can we get some points round up?
Here's some points, dude.
That's right. The points, the tally of the points. Let's see. We got Kyle at a solid +2. Also, no negatives given to Kyle tonight. Nobody took away any points from Kyle.
Jesus, how did everybody agree with me all night?
Did you get a fade?
Sirio, it's going to take a second because you got lots. Let's see. We got 4 minuses and 4 pluses. You're sitting at a solid 0 on the night. Dead even for the night. Then we have Doobie, who's sitting. Oh, looking good. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you are at a +4 for the night with 7 +1s and 3 minuses.
I guess that teaches you that Melania Trump's strategy is always the best. Just copy what other people say, and you will win.
I like that. +1 for you for that.
Give him another plus. Yeah. Give it to him.
I mean, it's sitting. The points are closed for the night. I'm sitting at a +3. I also have no minuses with Kyle. That's enjoyable for me. But Doobie takes it with a +4.
Palmer kept score. So that's bullshit.
If anyone wants to run back and check it, help yourselves. I have to keep score while setting up the production of the podcast, while giving an analysis. So you know what? If someone wants to take over the responsibility, I will give it up in a heartbeat.
I give you a +1 for that.
I wish I hadn't said that points are done for the night, so you still win, Doobie. Congratulations on the win. I thought Graham might hop on and do some beard talk, but he's not hopping on and doing the beard talk, and I'm not going to sit here and wait. That's just awful to the viewers. So we're going to go ahead and call it a night, everybody. Y'all are good for the night?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. The Hawks are up 7 right now, so let's hope they go to 3-0. I know the whole podcast universe across the United States is hoping for the same thing.
Go Magic.
Cheers to our 5 viewers that have stuck on for most of the college football talk. Our numbers, as always, went up with the college football talk. We're used to that. Grant, I forgot to give Grant the link. Is why he's not coming on for the beards. So that's on me. That's a -10 at least. Good night, everybody. We'll be back next week. We'll probably get in a little NBA talk after 2 weeks of the season. Might go a little lighter on college football as bad as this week's going to be, but when there's a bad college football schedule, what happens? Ridiculous upsets and games to watch. So we'll see you all in a week. Everybody enjoy your weeks.